The soft hum of the Starway station resonated through the dimly lit corridors. Nestled on the edge of known space, the place was a haven for weary travelers, traders, and adventurers seeking refuge from the vastness of the universe. Milo Carter, a human bartender at the Nebula Lounge, had grown accustomed to the station's ebb and flow. The flickering neon sign of the bar cast a muted glow on the polished metallic surfaces. Milo's hands worked rhythmically as he polished glasses, his thoughts drifting far beyond the station. He had always imagined a life of adventure, exploring distant galaxies, solving mysteries of the cosmos. But instead, he was stuck serving drinks to aliens with far more exciting stories than his own. The evening was calm, much like every other day. A few regulars, a mix of species with colorful scales and gleaming exoskeletons, lounged at the bar, quietly conversing in languages he couldn't understand. As he glanced at the clock, mentally counting down the hours until his shift ended, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Milo straightened, ready to greet another mundane customer. But this was no ordinary visitor. She was tall, slender, and her deep purple skin shimmered under the dim lighting. Her eyes, an otherworldly shade of glowing turquoise, scanned the room with quiet intensity. Her presence was commanding, and it felt as though the room itself paused to acknowledge her arrival. Milo's heart skipped a beat. Aliens weren't new to him, but there was something about her, something he couldn't quite place. She approached the bar with graceful strides, her movements fluid like the starlit waves of an ocean planet. "Do you have any Celestian mist?" she asked, her voice a velvety smooth melody that sent a shiver down his spine. Milo blinked, trying to remember if they had that exotic drink. I can check," he stammered, turning to the shelves behind him. He scanned the endless bottles of brightly colored liquids, feeling the pressure of her gaze on him. His fingers fumbled on a few bottles before he turned back around. "Sorry, we're out of Celestian mist. How about a Sci-Fi or vodka? It's similar, and it's pretty popular around here." She nodded, a small smile gracing her lips. "That'll do." As Milo poured the drink, he felt compelled to make conversation. There was a quiet intensity about her, something that made him both curious and cautious. "First time on Starway Station." The alien woman nodded, accepting the drink. "I've been traveling for a while now. Starway was the closest place to stop and unwind." Milo raised an eyebrow. "Unwind, ha. Long day." "You could say that," she replied, swirling the liquid in her glass. "Diplomatic work is taxing, especially with the negotiations I've been dealing with." She sighed, her glowing eyes dimming slightly, betraying her exhaustion. Milo felt an odd sense of empathy wash over him. Here was this elegant, seemingly powerful alien, dealing with the same stresses he often felt, trapped by responsibilities and weighed down by expectations. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm Milo, by the way. If you ever need to vent or just talk, well, I'm here." She glanced at him, her glowing eyes softening. "I'm Zora. And I might just take you up on that offer, Milo." As the night progressed, the two talked more. Zara spoke of interstellar politics, treaties, and the challenges of managing her people's affairs across multiple star systems. Milo listened, fascinated by the complexities of her life. It made his own troubles feel small in comparison, yet the two bonded over their mutual desire for something more than their current roles in the galaxy. Zara's stress was palpable, and despite his initial nervousness, Milo found himself wanting to help her in some way. "I'm no expert in galactic diplomacy," he said with a chuckle, "but I know a thing or two about stress relief." Zara arched an eyebrow. "Oh, and what does a bartender on a remote station know about stress relief?" Milo grinned. "Well, you'd be surprised how many travelers come in here tense and leave a little more relaxed. I've picked up a few tricks over the years." Zara tilted her head, curiosity evident. "And what tricks would those be?" He hesitated for a moment, then spoke. "Massages. I give decent massages. At least, That's what the regulars say. Helps with the tension after a long journey. Zora's glowing eyes studied him for a moment before she finally spoke. You're serious? Milo nodded, feeling a bit embarrassed but determined. Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable with it. You seem like you could use some relaxation. She let out a soft laugh, a sound that was almost musical. I've never had a human offer me a massage before. There was a pause. Then she leaned in slightly, her expression curious. I think I'll take you up on that, Milo. His heart raced. Was this really happening? He glanced around the bar. It was late, and there weren't many customers left. He could sneak away for a bit. All right, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Let me just tell the manager I'm taking a break. Zora smiled, a glimmer of intrigue in her eyes. Lead the way, human. Milo could hardly believe it as he guided Zora through the dimly lit corridors of Starway Station, his mind racing with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Little did he know, this chance encounter would lead him on an unexpected journey that would change his life forever. Milo's heart pounded as he walked alongside Zora through the quiet, sterile halls of Starway Station. His mind buzzed with uncertainty. What had he just agreed to? The idea of giving a massage to an alien diplomat was so surreal, it almost felt like a dream. But as Zora's soft footsteps echoed beside him, the reality of the moment settled in. He led her to the private staff lounge, a small, cozy room tucked away at the back of the station. It wasn't luxurious, but it was quiet, and more importantly, private. The lights dimmed automatically as they entered, casting a soft glow on the minimalist furniture. Zora looked around, her glowing eyes reflecting the dim light. Quaint, she remarked with a faint smile. Not exactly what I expected from a remote outpost. Milo chuckled nervously as he gestured toward the worn leather couch. It's not much, but it'll do. You can, lie down here if you'd like. Zora arched an eyebrow, her turquoise gaze studying him. You seem nervous, Milo. He rubbed the back of his neck, his cheeks flushing. I guess I am. It's not every day I offer a massage to someone like you. Her lips curved into a slight smile. Someone like me. Yeah, you know, a galactic diplomat with glowing eyes, and an aura of mystery. She let out a soft laugh, the sound light and melodic. I suppose that's fair, but relax, Milo. I won't bite. With that, Zora gracefully reclined on the couch, her lithe form settling into the cushions. Her shimmering purple skin caught the light, glowing faintly as she stretched out, her muscles visibly tense beneath her smooth, iridescent surface. Milo swallowed hard, trying to focus. He'd given plenty of massages to weary travelers. But this felt different, more intimate, somehow. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer, his hands hovering uncertainly over her shoulders. I'm not really sure about, alien physiology, he admitted sheepishly. Just let me know if anything feels uncomfortable. Zora turned her head slightly, her glowing eyes meeting his with a look of calm reassurance. Don't worry, Milo. I'll let you know. With a deep breath, Milo began. His hands, though trembling at first, found their rhythm as he pressed gently into her shoulders, feeling the tightness in her muscles. Zora's skin was cooler than he expected, smooth and slightly iridescent under his touch. He worked carefully, starting with light pressure and gradually increasing as he felt her body relax beneath his hands. As he continued, Zora let out a soft sigh of relief. You weren't lying about being good at this, she murmured, her voice soft and almost dreamy. Milo chuckled, the tension in his own body starting to ease. I've had a lot of practice. Bartending on a station like this, you meet a lot of stressed-out travelers. It's kind of part of the job. She remained quiet for a moment, enjoying the sensation. Then, as if feeling compelled to share, she began speaking in a softer tone, her voice carrying a hint of vulnerability. I wasn't lying about the stress of diplomacy either. Negotiating between star systems, managing different cultures, it's exhausting. Milo nodded as he worked his hands down her back, kneading away the knots of tension. I can only imagine. I mean, I get stressed out just dealing with some of the regulars at the bar. What you do sounds way more intense. Zora smiled faintly, her glowing eyes half closed. It is. And sometimes, I wonder if I'm even making a difference. So much of it feels like posturing. Endless negotiations that never seem to get anywhere. Milo frowned, his hand stilling for a moment as he considered her words. That sounds frustrating. Like you're stuck in a loop. Exactly, she sighed. Sometimes I wish I could just step away from it all. Leave the politics behind and explore the universe without all the pressure. Milo resumed the massage, his movements slower now, more thoughtful. I know what you mean. I used to dream of being an explorer too, you know. Seeing new worlds, discovering ancient ruins, all that stuff. But instead, I'm here, mixing drinks and listening to other people's stories. Zara tilted her head slightly, her glowing eyes opening to meet his. You still could, you know. Explore, I mean. The galaxy is vast, and there's always room for more adventurers. Milo laughed softly, shaking his head. Maybe, but for now, I'm kind of stuck here, just like you. The room fell into a comfortable silence after that, the only sounds the gentle hum of the station and the quiet, rhythmic movements of Milo's hands. As the tension in Zora's body melted away, so too did the barriers between them. They were just two beings, each carrying the weight of their own responsibilities, each longing for something more. After a while, Zara shifted slightly, her voice quiet and almost hesitant. Milo, do humans often help others like this, offering comfort to complete strangers? Milo paused, considering her question. I guess so, he said thoughtfully. It's kind of in our nature, I think. We're always looking to connect with others, to make things a little better when we can. Zara was quiet for a moment before speaking again, her tone softer now. It's refreshing. In my line of work, genuine kindness is rare. Most interactions are calculated, transactional. Milo smiled, his hand still resting lightly on her shoulders. Well, this isn't a transaction. I just wanted to help. Zora's glowing eyes softened, and she turned her head slightly to meet his gaze. And you have, Milo. More than you know. For a moment, the air between them seemed to hum with unspoken understanding, a quiet connection that transcended the differences between their worlds. In that small, dimly lit room, surrounded by the vast emptiness of space, two strangers found a moment of peace in each other's presence. But little did Milo know, this act of kindness was only the beginning of something far more extraordinary, a bond that would soon take him on a journey beyond anything he had ever imagined. The moment lingered in the air, heavy with a connection that neither of them fully understood. As Zara shifted slightly under his hands, Milo felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. It was almost like he had stepped outside the monotonous routine of his life for a moment, crossing an invisible line into something deeper, something more meaningful. Zara sat up slowly, her glowing eyes locking with his for a long moment. Thank you, Milo, she said, her voice softer than before and tinged with something more than simple gratitude. I needed that. He smiled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. No problem. Anytime you need a break from galactic politics, you know where to find me. Zara gave him a quiet smile, but there was something unreadable in her expression. I might just take you up on that. She rose gracefully, her fluid movements a stark contrast to the rigid atmosphere of the station. There was something otherworldly about the way she carried herself, but also a vulnerability that made Milo forget, for a moment, that she wasn't human. Zara seemed to hesitate, as if on the verge of saying something else. But before she could, a small device on her wrist lit up with a soft chime. Her expression tightened instantly. She glanced at the glowing hologram that appeared, her posture straightening with the weight of whatever message she had just received. The calm and relaxed Zara, he had seen moments ago was gone, replaced by the diplomat, the leader, the one who carried the burdens of star systems on her shoulders. "I have to go," she said, her voice now all business. "There's something I need to take care of." Milo nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "Right. Of course. Duty calls." But as she turned to leave, she paused at the door, casting one last glance back at him. "Milo, I appreciate what you did tonight, more than I can express." Her eyes glimmered with something that felt almost like hope. "I hope our paths cross again." And with that, she was gone, leaving Milo standing in the quiet room, wondering what exactly had just happened. He felt like a door had opened for him, just a crack, offering him a brief glimpse into something far greater than the life he had known. But now, that door was closed again, and he wasn't sure if it would ever open back up. The next few days at Starway Station passed in a blur. Milo went back to his routine at the Nebula Lounge, serving drinks to the usual mix of travelers, traders, and drifters. But his thoughts were elsewhere, always drifting back to Zara and their quiet moment together. It was like a song stuck in his head, playing over and over, a melody he couldn't shake. He found himself scanning the crowd for any sign of her, half expecting her to walk back into the bar, asking for another Sci-Fi or vodka, or just a quiet conversation. But she never did. One evening, as he was wiping down the counter after the bar had emptied out, Milo's thoughts were interrupted by the station's PA system crackling to life. A voice echoed through the corridors, cool and authoritative. "All personnel, prepare for arrival of an incoming diplomatic vessel. Clearance code Alpha Zeta 7. Estimated time of docking 15 minutes. Milo's heart skipped a beat. Diplomatic vessel. He muttered to himself. His mind immediately flashed to Zora. Was she back? He hadn't heard anything about a high-profile arrival since their last encounter. Could it be her? As if in answer to his unspoken question, the door to the bar slid open with a soft hiss, and Milo looked up to see a familiar figure standing in the doorway. It was Zora. But this time, she wasn't alone. Two imposing figures flanked her, tall and broad-shouldered, with gleaming silver armor and helmets that obscured their faces. Their presence was intimidating, a reminder of the weight of the galaxy she carried with her. Zara, however, was just as composed as ever, her glowing eyes scanning the empty bar until they landed on Milo. For a moment, the weight of the station, the vastness of space, and the distance between their worlds seemed to collapse. She crossed the room toward him, her guards remaining by the door, silent and still. "Milo," she said, her voice calm but edged with urgency. "I need your help." His eyes widened in surprise. "My help? With what? I'm just a bartender." Zara shook her head, stepping closer. "You're more than that. There's something happening, something dangerous. I can't go into detail, but I need someone I can trust. And after our conversation the other night, I believe that person is you." Milo blinked, caught off guard by her words. "Me? You barely know me, Zara. What could I possibly do to help someone like you?" She met his gaze with a steady intensity. "I know more than you think, Milo. And I know that you're not just some bartender hiding on a remote station. You're someone who dreams of more, someone who's capable of more. I saw that in you." Her words sent a thrill through him, but there was also fear. Whatever Zara was involved in, it wasn't simple. It wasn't safe. "What are you asking me to do?" he asked quietly. Zara glanced over her shoulder at the guards, then back at him. "Come with me. Leave the station. There's something unfolding across the galaxy, and I need people I can trust at my side. People who aren't entangled in the politics and corruption that plague our worlds." Milo stared at her, the weight of her request settling over him. Leave the station. Leave his life behind. It was everything he had dreamed of. And yet, now that the opportunity was standing before him, it felt overwhelming. "I don't know," he started, but Zara interrupted him. "You want adventure, Milo. I can offer you that. But more than that, I need your help. There are lives at stake, entire star systems in the balance. You can make a difference. The station hummed around them, the low thrum of the engines a constant reminder of the vastness of space just outside the walls. Milo's heart raced, his mind spinning with the possibilities. This was it, the moment he had always dreamed of, standing right in front of him. All he had to do was take the leap. He looked into Zara's glowing eyes, feeling the pull of the unknown, the promise of something greater than himself. He took a deep breath. I'm in. The decision hung in the air for a moment longer, and Milo felt the weight of it settle into his bones. Zara's expression softened, a flicker of relief crossing her face. Good, she said quietly. We don't have much time. She turned on her heel, gesturing for Milo to follow. Her two guards fell into step behind them as they exited the Nebula Lounge and moved through the dim corridors of Starway Station. Milo could feel his pulse quickening with every step. This was it. He was leaving everything he had known behind. The monotony of bartending on a remote station was being traded for something far more dangerous and uncertain. But for the first time in a long while, Milo felt alive. As they approached the docking bay, the station's usual calm seemed to shift into something more tense, more alert. Security officers lined the corridors, their faces set in grim concentration. Milo could feel the urgency in the air, a hum of anticipation that made his palms sweat. What exactly are we walking into? He asked, his voice low as they neared a sleek, silver diplomatic shuttle. Zara didn't look back as she answered. There's a faction, an insurgent group operating outside the control of any known star system. They've been disrupting peace talks, sabotaging supply lines, even launching attacks on neutral territories. Her tone was measured, but there was an undercurrent of frustration. We've been trying to root them out for months, but they've been one step ahead of us at every turn. Milo frowned, his mind racing to catch up. So how do I fit into this? Zara stopped in front of the shuttle's open door, turning to face him. They have a spy network that runs deeper than we realized. We suspect someone within our own diplomatic corps is feeding them information. I need someone I can trust to help me investigate. Someone who isn't already tied to the politics of it all. Milo's heart pounded. And you think I can help with that? I know you can, Zara said, her glowing eyes locking onto his. You've lived on this station long enough to know how to read people. You've seen all kinds of travelers pass through, and you know how to blend in, how to listen without drawing attention to yourself. She paused, her gaze softening slightly. Plus, you're someone I trust. That's something I can't say for many in my circle. Milo swallowed hard. This was far more than he had bargained for, but there was no turning back now. I'll do what I can, he said finally. Zara nodded, and without another word, she stepped onto the shuttle. Milo followed close behind, his heart racing as the doors slid shut with a soft hiss. The interior of the shuttle was sleek and minimalist, with soft lighting and comfortable seats arranged around a central control console. Zara took her place at the helm, the two guards settling into their stations as the engines hummed to life. Milo took a seat near the back, staring out the viewport as the docking bay doors opened and the vast expanse of space stretched out before them. It was a breathtaking sight, one he had seen 100 times before, but never like this. This time, he wasn't just observing from the safety of the station. This time, he was stepping into the unknown. As the shuttle lifted off, gliding smoothly out of Starway Station and into the endless void of space, Zara turned in her seat to face him. Our first stop is Atraxis Prime. There's a diplomatic summit happening there, one of the last chances to secure a peace agreement before things spiral out of control. I need to figure out who's working against us before it's too late. Milo nodded, though his mind was still trying to wrap around the gravity of the situation. And what exactly do you need me to do? Zara leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. For now, I need you to observe, blend in with the staff, listen to conversations, watch for anyone who seems out of place. I'll be handling the formal negotiations, but I can't do this alone. If there's a mole, They'll slip up eventually. We just need to be ready when they do." Milo nodded, feeling the weight of his new role settle over him. He had gone from bartending to espionage in a matter of days, and the sheer magnitude of it was starting to sink in. But there was no turning back now. He was in this, whether he was ready for it or not. The shuttle glided through the stars, its path set for Atraxis Prime. As the stars streaked past the viewport, Milo leaned back in his seat, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He was about to enter a world he knew nothing about, a world of political intrigue, hidden agendas, and life-or-death stakes. But alongside the fear, there was a thrill, a sense of adventure that he hadn't felt in years. This was what he had always wanted, wasn't it? To escape the mundane, to live a life of excitement and meaning. He glanced at Zara, who was focused on the console in front of her, her face a mask of concentration. There was something about her that drew him in, something he couldn't quite explain. She was more than just a diplomat. There was a fire in her, a determination that went beyond duty. And now, for reasons he didn't fully understand, she had chosen him to stand by her side. Milo closed his eyes, letting the steady hum of the shuttle's engines lull him into a sense of calm. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready for it. Or at least, he would have to be. Because there was no going back now. The shuttle landed smoothly on Atraxis Prime, a sprawling, bustling planet known for its diplomatic hubs and neutral territory. As they disembarked, Milo was struck by the sheer scale of the place. Tall, gleaming towers stretched toward the sky, and the air buzzed with the activity of countless species from across the galaxy. Zara wasted no time, leading Milo and her guards through the crowded streets toward the heart of the diplomatic district. "We'll be staying at the embassy," she explained, her voice clipped as they weaved through the throngs of people. "I need to meet with the other delegates, but you'll have access to most areas. Keep your ears open and your eyes sharp." Milo nodded, trying to take it all in. Atraxis Prime was unlike anything he had ever seen before, vibrant, chaotic, and full of life. It was a far cry from the quiet, isolated corridors of Starway Station, and he felt a rush of excitement at the thought of exploring this new world. As they reached the embassy, Zara turned to him, her expression serious. "This is it, Milo. From here on out, we're playing for keeps. Watch your back, and watch mine." He gave her a small smile, trying to mask his nerves. "I'll do my best." With that, Zara disappeared into the diplomatic chambers, leaving Milo standing in the grand lobby of the embassy, surrounded by diplomats, aides, and security personnel. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. His adventure had only just begun. The embassy on Atraxis Prime was a grand, sprawling structure of polished marble and shimmering glass. Milo couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as he stood in the lobby, his eyes darting over the various diplomats, staff members, and security personnel moving with purpose. They all seemed to know exactly what they were doing, while Milo was trying to find his footing in this new world. Zara had disappeared into a meeting room with high-level diplomats, leaving Milo to explore and observe. He had been given a simple task: listen, watch, and blend in. But standing there among the crowd, he felt more like an outsider than ever. He wandered the halls of the embassy, taking in the atmosphere. It was a place of tension and diplomacy, where every word could tip the balance between peace and conflict. There was an undercurrent of unease in the air, the kind that made him hyper-aware of every passing glance, every whispered conversation. As he moved through the corridors, Milo found himself in a quieter wing of the embassy, away from the bustling main lobby. The halls were less crowded, and the mood more subdued. This was where the staff worked, far from the glamour of the diplomatic chambers. Here, people moved with hurried precision, their faces etched with focus and stress. He passed by a group of aides discussing logistics, their conversation hushed but intense. "They want the records from the council meeting. Do they know how long it takes to process that many files?" One aide muttered, her hands full of data pads. Another, A wiry man with sharp features responded in a low voice. "It's not about the records. It's about delaying the talks. The longer they wait, the worse things get. Someone's playing a game, and we're stuck in the middle of it." Milo slowed his pace, pretending to inspect a nearby wall panel, but his ears were tuned in to the conversation. It sounded like exactly the kind of subtle manipulation Zora had warned him about, someone working behind the scenes to sabotage the peace talks. As he lingered near the group, the door to an office further down the hall slid open. A tall, thin man with a severe expression stepped out, his dark robes marking him as a senior aide. Milo recognized him from Zora's description. Rothar Vale, a key advisor to one of the most influential diplomats in the summit. He was rumored to have connections to less than savory elements in the galaxy. Rothar's gaze swept the hallway, landing on Milo for a brief moment. His eyes narrowed, and Milo felt a chill run down his spine. Rothar didn't stop to speak, but his stare lingered just long enough to make Milo feel like he had been marked. The man's presence was cold, calculating. Exactly the kind of person who could be working for the insurgent group Zara had mentioned. Once Rothar disappeared around a corner, Milo exhaled the breath he didn't realize he was holding. He glanced back at the aides, who had quickly dispersed after the advisor's appearance. If there was a mole, Rothar seemed like a prime candidate. Determined to learn more, Milo began walking again, blending into the flow of embassy staff. He needed to be cautious. Rothar had already noticed him, and if he was involved in the sabotage, Milo couldn't afford to make any mistakes. He spent the rest of the day observing from the shadows, careful not to draw attention to himself. The longer he watched, the more certain he became that something was wrong. Conversations were cut short when certain people entered the room. Documents disappeared from data pads, and a sense of secrecy loomed over the entire embassy. By the time night fell, Milo had gathered enough scraps of information to form a rough picture. Rothar was heavily involved in the behind-the-scenes dealings, and there were whispers of meetings held off the official record. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Returning to his quarters that evening, Milo found himself deep in thought. He had agreed to help Zara, but he hadn't expected to be thrust into the heart of galactic intrigue so quickly. This wasn't just about serving drinks anymore. This was about navigating the dangerous currents of politics and espionage. As he entered his room, the soft chime of his communicator pulled him from his thoughts. He glanced down at the small device, surprised to see a message from Zara. "Meet me in the observation deck. We need to talk." Milo's pulse quickened. He hadn't seen Zara since they arrived at Atraxis Prime, and he had a feeling that whatever she needed to discuss was important. Without hesitation, he slipped the communicator into his pocket and left his quarters, making his way through the embassy's dimly lit corridors. The observation deck was a quiet, secluded space near the top of the embassy, offering a panoramic view of the cityscape below. When Milo arrived, Zara was already there, standing by the large windows, her silhouette bathed in the soft glow of the distant stars. "Zara," Milo greeted, stepping forward. She turned to face him, her expression serious. "I've been hearing things, Milo. Something's brewing beneath the surface, and I need to know what you found." Milo nodded, stepping closer to the window as he began to recount everything he had seen and heard. The tense conversation among the aides, the strange behavior surrounding Rothar Vale, the off-record meetings. Zara listened intently, her glowing eyes fixed on him as he spoke. When he finished, Zara's expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Rothar, he's always been a wild card, but if he's working with the insurgents, that changes everything." "What do we do now?" Milo asked. Zara turned back to the window, her gaze distant. "We have to act carefully. If we move too soon, we could tip them off. But if we wait too long..." Her voice trailed off, and Milo felt the weight of their situation pressing down on him. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Zara exhaled, turning to face him once more. "We'll need proof, something concrete. Until then, Keep your eyes and ears open. Don't let Rothar or anyone else know we're onto them." Milo nodded, a sense of determination settling over him. "I'll do whatever it takes." Zara smiled, a faint glimmer of warmth in her otherwise stern expression. "I know you will, Milo. I chose you for a reason." With that, she turned back to the stars, leaving Milo standing beside her in silence. The vastness of space stretched out before them, a reminder of just how small they were in the grand scheme of things. But in that moment, Milo felt like they were standing on the edge of something far greater than themselves. And there was no turning back now. The next few days at the embassy were a whirlwind of covert actions and subtle espionage. Milo continued to gather information, blending into the background while keeping an ear out for anything that could help Zara. Rotharvale's movements became more suspicious, and Milo learned that the advisor was frequently slipping away to private, off-the-record meetings. Zara had kept a low profile, attending official diplomatic sessions while secretly orchestrating their investigation from the sidelines. It was a delicate balancing act, maintaining her role as a diplomat while digging into the sabotage threatening the summit. One evening, as Milo made his way through a service corridor to meet Zara in a hidden chamber, his communicator buzzed softly. He glanced down at the screen and saw a message from Zara. "Urgent. Meet me at the old archive chamber. Bring anything you found." Milo felt a spike of anxiety. Zara rarely sounded this urgent. He hurried through the corridors, his heart pounding. The old archive chamber was located in the lower levels of the embassy, a section that had been abandoned in favor of newer facilities. It was the perfect place for a secret meeting. As he approached the chamber, the dim lighting cast long shadows on the walls. The air was thick with dust, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the empty halls. Milo stepped through the doorway, scanning the darkened room. Zara was already there, standing near a large display terminal, her glowing eyes sharp and focused. "Zara," Milo called softly, approaching her. "What's going on?" She turned to face him, her expression grave. "It's worse than we thought. Rothar is planning something big, something that could derail the entire summit and ignite a war." Milo's heart skipped a beat. "A war? How do you know?" Zara gestured to the display terminal. "I've been monitoring Rothar's communications. He's been in contact with insurgents on multiple planets, coordinating an attack on the summit itself. They plan to strike during tomorrow's peace talks." Milo's mind raced. An attack on the peace talks would be catastrophic, not just for Zora's people, but for the entire galaxy. "Do we have enough evidence to stop him?" Zara shook her head. "Not yet. I need more data from Rothar's private terminal. But that's in his office, heavily guarded." Milo clenched his fists. "Then we'll have to get in there and get the proof ourselves." Zara studied him for a moment, her expression softening. "It's dangerous, Milo. If we're caught." "We won't be," Milo interrupted, his voice steady. "We can't let them go through with this." Zara nodded, a hint of pride flickering in her eyes. "All right, let's do this." Later that night, Milo and Zara made their way through the embassy under the cover of darkness. The halls were eerily quiet, most of the staff having retired for the night. Zara had secured access codes to Rothar's office, but the challenge would be avoiding the patrols and security systems. As they approached Rothar's office, Zara motioned for Milo to stop. Two guards stood at the entrance, their eyes scanning the hallway. Milo's heart raced, but Zara remained calm. She pulled a small device from her cloak and handed it to him. "This will create a temporary distraction," she whispered. "We'll have about 20 seconds to slip past them." Milo nodded, taking the device in his hand. With a deep breath, he activated it, tossing it down the hallway. A loud crackling noise echoed through the corridor, followed by a burst of light. The guards immediately turned, rushing toward the source of the disturbance. "Now," Zara whispered, grabbing Milo's arm. They darted past the distracted guards and into Rothar's office. The room was dark, save for the faint glow of a data terminal on the desk. Zara quickly moved to the terminal, her fingers flying over the controls. "Hurry," Milo urged, glancing nervously at the door. The guards wouldn't be distracted for long. "I'm almost there," Zara muttered, her eyes locked on the screen. After a few tense moments, she let out a quiet gasp. "I've got it. The communications logs, the attack plans. It's all here." Milo breathed a sigh of relief. "Let's get out of here." But just as they turned to leave, the door slid open. Standing in the doorway was Rothar Vale, his cold eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. Well, Rothar said, his voice dripping with disdain. "I didn't expect to find a great diplomat Zara sneaking around my office, and with a human no less." Zara stepped forward, her eyes glowing with defiance. "It's over, Rothar. We know about your plan." Rothar chuckled darkly. "You may have found some pieces, but you're too late. The insurgents are already in position, and the attack will happen whether or not you expose me." Milo's heart sank. Rothar wasn't bluffing. There wasn't enough time to stop the insurgents before the peace talks. But Zara didn't waver. "We'll see about that," Zara said, her voice cold and steely. Without warning, Rothar lunged at Zara, a sleek, concealed blade flashing in his hand. Milo reacted instinctively, grabbing a nearby chair and swinging it at Rothar, knocking him off balance. Zara seized the moment, disarming Rothar with a swift strike and pinning him to the ground. "Stay down," she hissed, holding the blade to his throat. Milo stood, breathing heavily as he watched the scene unfold. "What do we do now?" Zara looked up at him, her expression fierce. "We take him to the council. With the evidence we've gathered and Rothar himself, we can stop the attack." The next morning, Zara and Milo stood before the High Council of Atraxis Prime, Rothar Vale in custody behind them. The evidence they had gathered was overwhelming, and the council immediately moved to intercept the insurgents before they could carry out their attack. The peace talks went ahead as planned, with Zora playing a crucial role in securing a ceasefire between the warring factions. Milo watched from the sidelines, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He had come to Starway Station as a simple bartender, but now he had helped prevent a galaxy-wide war. As the summit drew to a close, Zora found Milo standing near the entrance to the embassy, gazing out at the stars. "You did well, Milo," she said, her voice soft but filled with warmth. Milo smiled, turning to face her. "I couldn't have done it without you." Zara stepped closer, her eyes glowing softly in the fading light. "You have a gift, Milo. You see things others don't, and you have the courage to act when it matters. You're more than just a bartender." Milo chuckled. "Maybe, but for now, I think I'll stick to serving drinks." Zara smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Are you sure? There's a whole galaxy out there, waiting to be explored. You could come with me. There's always more work to be done." Milo hesitated, feeling the weight of her words. He had tasted adventure, and part of him longed for more. But he also knew that this life, this constant danger, wasn't for him. "I think I'm where I need to be," he said softly. "But if you ever need a drink, you know where to find me." Zora's smile widened, and she reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I'll hold you to that." With one final glance at the stars, Zora turned and walked away, leaving Milo standing alone. He watched her disappear into the crowd, a strange mix of emotions swirling within him. The galaxy was vast, and his journey was far from over. But for now, Milo Carter, the bartender of Starway Station, had found his place in the stars.